Welcome back. I hope you got some tea, some coffee, and you're ready to go into part two of today. So the next step that we're going to work through now is, let me just check it. Okay, perfect, is best practices. How can you take the frameworks that we went through now and implement them in your practice? And one of the ways of doing that is through what we call keystone habits. Now, the idea around this, if we talk a little bit about, creating habits, is about moving through those different stages of unconsciousness and to conscious competence. And the idea with keystone habits is a way for you to create a new habit or practice in your business that then brings up opportunities for engagement. So if we think about keystone habits, and here's just a quote about, what a keystone habit would be, and that's they lead to the development of multiple good habits. So they start a chain of effects in your life that produces a number of positive outcomes. Now, if we relate keystone habits to asset map, the idea here is to say, what can I do differently? We know in our process, we engage with clients, we review clients, but the idea with keystone habits is to, outside of that process, to review 5 households every week. Really. So to do that, you would pick a time or a day once a week and say, on Tuesdays, I'm going to create 5 households in Asset Map. And then what I'm going to do is apply my advisor intelligence to them. And that could be working through those frameworks or things by viewing it. What are the things that this client needs to know, needs to do, needs to fix, needs to fill? And you're going to share that with the client. Take the liberty to communicate it without being asked. And the key here is from the client's perspective, it's not review time, it's not time for the engagement, but they get an email and there's a special sense that they'll receive because my plan is thinking of me, they've drawn up this map for me, and that is something we've been talking about for a while, or that is something that we do need to fix or fill. So again, keystone habit is around saying pick a time, pick a day and a time in a week, and say I'm going to create at least 5, and I'm going to review them, apply my advisor intelligence, see what needs to change and how this client can take that one step forward, and I'm going to communicate that with them. And we'll work through a couple of examples of that, but why is this successful as a process to or an approach to use? Well, firstly, it's this thinking of proactive advisor, and we'll touch on that a bit more in the next slides. But this idea that we're moving towards, proactively communicating things with our clients that we think could become an issue down the line, or things that we think they need to change or could take a step up by doing it. And how planners have used this is they've again approached clients that they haven't engaged with for some time. Perhaps you've got clients, again, if you've inherited a book of clients, there might be clients or leads on there that you haven't engaged with in quite some time, but you have some information about that client. Creating the asset map for them, printing it out, writing 1 or 2 things that you think could move that conversation forward, and sharing it with the client can have a massive impact. And we'll work through a couple of examples where you can use this practice now in your business going forward. And that's these 5 conversations to have in 2023. And I want to talk just a little bit about this concept of proactive advisor. So the idea is around, you give more, you get more. And I really love this just as a principle and as a concept. How can we give more to our clients and give more value? And it's around this rebirth of proactive advisor. And if you think about financial planning, and I know a lot of you already do this, in your processes already, and are being proactive about the advice that we give. But traditionally, planning would be, like Benny mentioned, you create the plan and then you go into sort of a maintenance or review mode. But this concept of proactive advice and advice engagement and engaging on specific focus areas and then moving on to the next, I think is what we're seeing globally is rising. And we wanted to come up with a couple of conversations, just practical examples of how you could proactively advise clients through specific conversations, but also using that keystone habit as a way of engaging. So the first one we're talking about is looking at what's wrong with this picture. So if you create the map for the client, again, using your advisor intelligence to review that and see what's missing, what's wrong, what could be filled, what can we do differently. And we'll go into each of these to give some examples. But the second one is, this could potentially be an issue for your family. So that again lends itself more to the 6 L's. What are those events that could derail a plan? Sharing that with the clients. And again, we'll go through that. How funded are we for specific goals? How are we funding them, and how funded are we for potential goals that the client has? The fourth one is certainty around retirement. I want to talk a little bit more around this topic as well as we go through these slides. And then legacy. So these are 5 different individual conversations that you could proactively have with your clients, as you work through that keystone habit, to share with them. And let's just touch on each one. So the first one is generating the map, saying, here's your latest asset map. And I want to point out this one item. We've been talking about consolidating these investments for a while, or we've often talked about this gap in your plan. I want us to do something proactively about it. But why is this different? If you create this map and send it to a client through that keystone habit process, then essentially the client gets this, they feel, this planner knows me, is drawn up this map for me, and yes, we have been talking about this one point. Let's work through that. Okay. So that's the first proactive conversation. The second one is using target maps. So, as you're reviewing a client, work through their disability target map. If you find that it's, underfunded, sharing just that page with the clients and saying, working through it, thinking of you, quickly ran this analysis, and we can see this may become an issue in the future. Let's engage about it. Get time with the client to work through that. The third one is, how funded are we for certain goals that we may have? And this could be for things like kids' education, liquidity requirements in the event of death, debt repayment, just creating specific target maps to see, are we on track? Are there things we need to do differently? Gary, you mentioned there was a poll and it came up that most clients are concerned about, debt and how they manage that. So even doing a target map for that to just show, how on track are we? How are we funding this? What can we do differently to move forward? This one I wanted to touch on because this comes up a lot in the engagements that I have with planners. We're doing a retirement plan for a client. And I don't know if you're aware, if you hover over this bar at the top, the green bar that shows how funded the client is, it will change color and show you how funded you are based on your current asset value versus cash flow, future cash flow sources or cash flow sources now. And the example we see quite often in this space is, where clients have built up a big property portfolio and they're receiving a lot of rental income in retirement. They could be quite adequately funded for retirement, but a big portion of that might be reliant on that rental income. And just hovering over that and making the client aware that yes, you are 80-90% funded for retirement, but 60% of that is dependent on that rental income, as an example. And I think that's important to highlight that to clients as we move towards, certainty or anxiety. So, if that doesn't feel certain enough for you, how do we change that over time and maybe work to change those ratios in time? So I just wanted to highlight that is something we're seeing. You can hover over that bar, see the different sources of why the client is that funded, and see what comes up in that conversation. So even sharing that with the client, do we want to create more certainty here? Should we be possibly, moving through the different quadrants of where we save and invest to ensure it's more balanced? Okay. And then the last one, this is a great one to reach out to clients with, especially older clients, in just ensuring, is everything in place? So really creating the map, using stencils to highlight potential gaps. Like, is the will in place? What about a letter of wishes? What about beneficiary nominations? Circle that and engage with the client. I also want to highlight the beneficiary reports. I think this is a great report, especially in this space, where it shows the client for all of their assets, liabilities, who is receiving what in the event of their death. So you can see on the bottom of the screen there, it creates a column for every member that is a beneficiary, and it shows that upon death, this is the amount that will go to this person, this is the amount that will be going to that person. This is a great proactive engagement tool that you can share with a client and say, just checking in. This is the beneficiaries as we have it. Have there been any changes, anything that we need to review or move around and update that? So again, just taking one thing at a time, sharing it with the client, communicating that as a proactive step that they can use to take forward. So in all of this, if we think of keystone habits and these proactive conversations, the key is to create the report, to highlight what you think could change or what, as a proactive next step, could help the client take a step forward. And a great way of doing it, what we've seen is client planners will actually print out that asset map report and write on it, we need to talk about this, or there's this area that I'm concerned about, and then share it with the client and schedule time for an engagement. And what we find is clients feel, immediately they feel my planner understands me. They're taking the time to understand me and to proactively help me move forward. It just creates a shift in that and opens up that conversation to take a step forward. So try it out, implement keystone habits, even if it's not 5's too many, do at least 3, but pick an amount and decide how you're going to communicate that to clients. All right. And then in the last section, or any questions on that before I jump into cool stuff? Lenny, Gary, let me check the chats here.
No, I think everybody's good. There's lots of commenting, but it's not specific questions.
Okay, perfect. All right. So this is right at the end, the cool stuff. So we're going to talk through a little bit of features that you may have seen, that you may not have seen, and what is coming down the line. So first, we're going to start with a poll again, just to see how you are using these features at the moment. So I'm going to launch it. Benny, Gary, I expect a running commentary of how the votes are coming in, please, to keep that up now. Okay, so the question is, using Asset Map, do you mostly engage clients live, paper and pen, remotely, digital, or a combo? Okay, so combo seems to be quite high. So
paper and pen is right up there. Okay, no, it's taking a step back now.
Yeah,
Combos,
it moves very
forward.
quickly
Combos
when you watch
remotely.
I think it would
I mean,
have
this
been
is huge fun. I'm so I don't know why, but maybe it's because it'll influence people if they see it, what other people are saying. But this is such a fun way
of watching a movie.
Yeah, so remotely is in the lead.
Remotely is in the lead.
Remotely,
I think it would have been
sure.
interesting to do this poll, a few years
pre-COVID.
And now I think the results are quite different. But I mean, great to see. 37%. I'm going to share now. I think that's probably most people have voted. So let me just share so you can.
But if you add the remotely to the live off the device, so more than half of the people are interacting live with Asset Map. That's incredible.
Yeah. And then the combo in a way as well,
yeah, sure. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So that's very interesting. Okay, well, I'm going to share some things that you can use in those sessions, especially if you are doing it remotely, to sort of bring that paper and pen feel even in a remote session. So the first one, I'm sure you all have seen the marker and the ability to draw on the screen in Asset Map. And of course, this works on iPads really well as well, or tablets, but even using your mouse and clicking and drawing. The purpose of it is to channel the engagement. So it's not really to make notes, you'd use the note functionality for that, but just to circle a block and say to a client, I want to talk more about this one, or there's a gap here that we want to unpack, using the marker to drive the conversation and drive the discussion that you're having with the clients. But really what I wanted to share about it is, if you're like me and you want the quick keyboard, shortcut keys to turning it on and off, you can see that here, and we'll send this out as well. You can search marker, you can find that on the Sports Center too. But by turning on control and this, I'm not sure what you call this, squiggly line, it will turn it'll turn the marker on. And then you can change colors by selecting B for the black pen. You can select R for the red pen. You can select T to just delete it. You can also undo by clicking U to just take away the last change you made, not all of the drawings, and I to bring that back if you want to take something off.
Kirsty,
and
I
bring it
did
back
not
on.
know. I did not know the squiggly line turns it on. I use Control M.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Control M.
You can use Control M as well. You can use Control M for marker, 100% right. You can,
Okay.
but you can also use those two to turn it on, and Escape will just turn it off completely. Okay, so Escape is when you want to turn off the marker and move around the screen. But use the pen; it works really, really well, especially if you're having, you know, Zoom or Teams meetings, to just show the client where to focus, and just pulls them into the conversation as well. So it's important to use that. The second one, I always think everybody has seen the calculator, but then I often see people manually calculating separately and then putting the results in. So just so you know, every amount field in Asset Map is a calculator similar to Excel. The most important thing is to put the equals sign in first. And sometimes you'll see you click it, it doesn't show up in the block and you have to just click it again. So just make sure the equals is in the block, but then you can do any sum. So whether you're working out the annual contribution amount or you're working out, you know, a percentage of income, any formula you can put in that calculator field. Then here I want to talk a little bit about KFFs, or key financial figures. So if you're in a client's asset map on the dashboard, you'll see these key financials that show up on the dashboard here. There's always 5 that show up. And the purpose of them is, again, to create space for engagement. So, you know, sometimes looking at a ratio like net equity or, you know, total assets to total liabilities creates a space for a conversation and an engagement with the client. But what I want to cover here is that if you click on those 3 dots there, it opens up and you can select which of these ratios or totals you want to see on your summary, which is this dashboard here, so which ones you want to see on this dashboard, and you can select which ones you want to see on the asset map page itself. So you'll see there's 2 columns. You can select up to 5. If I tick it under this asset map column, it'll show on the asset map page at the bottom of the page over here. And most of you, if you've seen that, you would say, but it doesn't, you know, generate when I print the report. I'm happy to state that you can now, if you click on reports, select to include those key financials, and that will then show on your reports when you print it out. You can also select orientation. That's also a new change where you can select whether you want the asset map picture to be portrait or landscape. And you can download here just the asset map or incorporate it as part of your comprehensive report. So just so you know, that is now available. I want to go through this ability in target maps. We've added the ability to move lines around, so you can copy line items under what you want, and you can then drag them to where you want it to be for reporting. You know, this is a great way of setting expenses for a certain period of time, and, you know, then changing it to a different amount for, you know, a different period of time. So in this example, just saying this is what we need till 90, and this is the amount we need after 90. So a quick way of doing that, just copy that line item. You can move it around and edit it to as you see fit, and you can do the same in the what you have section. So if you're in the what you have section, you can also, you know, select and reorder the assets or the cash flow items in an order that makes sense, and it'll pull that order through to the report when you're reporting. So it'll report in that same order. All right, target map preferences. One thing we've added here, you'll see on the very right-hand side, is when you open target maps, it always defaults to what it means. You can now change that setting and say, I'd like it to default to the what you want section. Then when you open target maps, it'll always open on that page. That's just something to be aware of. And then in asset map settings, I wanted to point out the avatars that you can select. We have added a new one here, and this one color coordinates by role. So if it's a primary client, will always be a particular color, spouses will always be a different color, dependents will be a specific color, and businesses and entities will be a different color. So try that out, see if you like this new sort of look and feel option, or you can select one of the main options here. You can also select, when you'll know if you go into household index and you click on an asset map household, it always takes you to that dashboard page first. Now you can select to say, actually, I want it to take me straight into the asset map, and you can change that setting here and it'll go straight into the asset map page. I use this feature all the time, and I wanted to just share it again. In the top right hand corner, you click on the tick box. It gives you the ability to select multiple blocks at once and perform an action like remove or delete, clone those blocks, hide it or unhide it. And this works really, really well if you apply a stencil to a client and you want to keep some blocks but not all the blocks. You can click on this, select the ones you want to delete, and remove them all at once. This is something new that we've added in recently, as we see data privacy and, those rules and legislation changing, getting more and more requests to include something around data consent and data privacy in the discovery. So we now have the ability where you can give us what you want the text to be. We can add it into your discovery questionnaire. So when a client opens either the inbound or the outbound, they will first need to consent for you to process their data. So you decide on the wording of that. They have to tick the box to move forward, and we'll then incorporate that wording and the date and time the client signed is incorporated in the discovery report that you can refer back to. So this is a great way of gathering data from clients, but also ensuring that you're meeting that data, privacy and consent. Please, if you want to add this in, it is available now. We'll send more information in the follow-up mail from this webinar, but please let us know. We can add that into your discovery. Then some product updates. I want to just mention this. Benny did mention it in the newsletter, but as we make these small changes and bigger changes over time, it gets harder and harder to keep up to date with the new things that have come out. So they've introduced in the bottom right, you see there's always that messenger box there. If there's a little red dot, take a look. It's showing that something new has been launched or has gone live. Click on that so that you can be the first to know about brand new features, updates, handy tool tips or updates based on your feedback. So keep a lookout for that. As Benny said, there's two big ones coming out this year. The one is or hopefully this year I should say, the one is the ability to connect with clients, so to be able to share their asset map, that they can log in, see their asset map, and that we're calling Connect. The other change that I'm super excited about is proposals that's coming out this year. And what that is often planners will say, I want to propose some changes or something different on the map. How do I reflect that? And we've typically done that through, hiding and unhiding blocks. And we've actually bringing out a proposal section in the live environment where you'll be able to show what you're proposing and how it will change the picture. And it looks really interesting, and will definitely open up conversation, engagement, and just make that process of how do I propose a change so much easier and simpler. So I'm looking forward to that, and we'll keep sharing with you as those things become available. All right, and on the Work That Matters financial calculators, you'll know that we've created estate planning calculators. This is now on the Work That Matters website. We always, our thinking is that those calculations is not where the value is. The value is in the conversation with the client, taking the results of those calculations. But we have added estate planning calculators to that website where you can do quick calculations on, what would the costs be in the event of death for an ANC, COP, or single individual. And we've just recently added another calculator called the income tax calculator. What's unique about this one, because I'm sure you can say, you can find them everywhere. If you Google, I'm earning this, what's the net income? But what we found is that doing it the other way around is a more difficult calculation to say, if I want for my living annuity clients, they need 10,000 Rand net a month, what would the gross drawdown need to be in order for them to get 10,000 Rand net? And this income tax calculator will do that. So you can either calculate, what the after-tax amount will be from the before tax, or you can calculate what the before tax amount needs to be to get a specific amount out after tax. So please take a look at that, give us feedback. We are building on this library based on other calculators that you've mentioned would be useful. And then I also want to talk through, just before we wrap up for the day, our referral program. We've updated it. We wanted to create a referral program where if anyone in the team referred someone, that everyone could benefit from it. So the new referral program is, if you refer someone and they sign up, both you and the person you referred will receive a 1,000 Rand Take-A-Lot voucher, and that can be from anyone in the team. So please, if you know someone, you have someone in mind, please let us know. And thank you for all of your referrals up to date. It's definitely been a great source of our growth. And then the challenge before we end for the day. I know we went through a lot today, lots of different frameworks, lots of ways to use sample maps, stencils, discovery, and those proactive conversations. But maybe if you leave with this one thing, start with 5 a week. Just create 5 asset maps a week. Review it, see what changes, what can we do to help that client make a step forward. And for each one, run at least one target map to see how on track is that client. And the third one, probably the one I like the most, is get someone else in the team to have a look at it. See what comes up for them, and together discuss what is the steps that you see this client can take that step forward, and then communicate it with them. So hope you've had hope there's been something new today, something that you can take away with you. Please share with us. And just as we wrap up, if you can pop into the chat and just tell us, what are you most excited to implement following today's session?